Hello to you all today. Thank you for joining me. If you're new to the channel, welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. I'm feeling a bit upbeat today because I've been making a lot of progress with the content for the channel. I'm trying to get ahead of myself for a reason, and to do scheduling and to have a bit of a routine and structure here as well for the people that like the content and that. If you're a returning visitor, thank you for your ongoing support. Please do know I welcome comments, even if I forget to say on each slide, make a comment. I embrace comments and conversation. Anyway, for this video today, we're talking about the ruling number 4, which obviously is not that rare, and hopefully this video won't be too long. I'll do my best to make it flow for you and not be too long and not go down a rabbit warren. So just a reminder that all ruling numbers are the sum of the numbers of the birthday reduced down to a single primary number between the numbers 1 to 9, unless they equate to the numbers 11, 12 or 22 or even 33, in which case they're said to be master numbers. Now, each number is said to have a specific power or an association attached to the energy. Even numbers such as the 4 are considered to be feminine, and as feminine numbers, they're associated with the intuitive aspects, the moon and the colour silver. What else should I remind you of here? A person is more than the sum of their numbers. There are other influences that are going to be involved when it comes to doing a numerology report, and that includes looking at things like the birth chart and their astrology. So don't think of numerology and ruling numbers as a standalone, because there's a lot more to it. Even in a numerology report, there's a lot more than just here is the ruling number. But moving on. So before we get cracking, people with a ruling number of 4, there's a couple of different ways that you can add the numbers of the birth date together. So there's a few sequences, as you can see here. You can have a 13 over 4, you can have a 22, 31, 40, 49, breaks down to the 13. 9 plus 4 is 13, and then 1 plus 3 equals 4. So this is how we break it down, and you can see the other ways of doing it. Today we will not be talking about the 22-4 because it's actually a master number, and I'm going to dedicate a whole video to master numbers when we get to that. But for the other sequences, just a reminder that 4 sits on the birth chart on what is called the physical or doing plane, and you'll see what I mean by this as we go through the slides and when I do the breakdown of the Dalai Lama's birth chart, which I found to be quite interesting. So generally speaking, people with a ruling number of 4 like things to be ordered, where there's a system and a structure, and possibly, and this is based on my own observations, they don't necessarily or always cope well with changes or disruptions to the routine. They like a level of predictability in their lives. As a 4, just simply the 4 from the general perspective as well, there can be some dogmatic type traits of black and white thinking. Other observations is that they can be quite materialistic, but they're not too proud to get down and work for it, or even to get their hands dirty. So, hats off to them. They don't expect it to be given to them on a silver platter. Now, given their practical aspects, they can also be quite creative, not necessarily artistic, sitting there with a canvas and a paintbrush, but they do like to put their hands to work to create things that potentially are useful. So there is an association with the number and that of the saying the master builder, because they like to see the results of their practical efforts and their work. Now, in my observations, the people that have got a ruling earth sign, such as Taurus, Virgo or Capricorn, I see them as being more materially focused than perhaps some of the other forms, because they definitely like to grow their assets and enjoy the fruits of their labour. And often as they're doing their maturing, if you like, because we're talking about life paths here, they can struggle to see the results, because as they develop their wisdom, they may tend to reward themselves a little too often, or even a little too soon. Instead of waiting for that nest egg to reach fruition, if you like, they might nip into it and undermine their own hard work, if you like. Better description there, I guess. So anyway, on the other hand, they can generally be quite thrifty with money despite this materialistic edge, but they like that as I said before, they like to see that whatever money or wealth or assets that they might have, it has a practical purpose for them, and they have a preference for facts, solid facts, as opposed to unsupported or unfounded thoughts and beliefs. So they might struggle a little bit with the spiritual aspects and concepts of energy, but at the same time, that doesn't rule it out, because life is about growth. So I've actually seen people with the 4 who are extremely spiritual and brilliant energy workers. Anyway, moving along. So it helps to have a sense of humour, I think, because where we all have a life purpose, the 4 does as well. But interestingly, or what I find interesting, is that given that living on the earth plane is about having experiences, for the number 4, when we talk about the associations with material and, prosperity, wealth, that kind of thing, the materialistic edge, that's actually part of their life purpose, to experience life in all of its earthly glory, and that is to find wealth, to enjoy wealth, and to live from the benefits of it. And in fact, that's actually one of their primary purposes. What this can look like in reality is that they will work, save the money, and it could even be holidays, right? Where the rest of us are going like, oh my God, how can you go and squander money like that? They're living their path. But the point is that at some point in time, they will go beyond this waste, if you like, or squandering of their wealth, because this is part of their experience, to rise above that in recognition that money's not everything, and to act in practical ways to uplift the rest of humanity. So once again, I remind people, this is about a life path, and we're all growing at our own rates, and this is the 4 as well. So I guess in their youth and heyday, they're meant to be out there having all that fun and enjoying all those pleasures that money can bring to them. But at some point, they will rise above that and potentially use their money to support other people with philosophical endeavours or whatever, or just teaching people how they can manifest abundance. So the 4s are the doers of the world. They're either creating business or making money, and whatever they do, they will bring a level of a conventional approach to the ventures, right? And they bring in this ethos of hard work. They are unlikely to be able to sit still for terribly long, especially if someone around them is trying to organise something, because they will tend to involve themselves by offering their assistance, because they are very helpful people. But the sorts of help they offer can be very systematic. We can acknowledge their traits, that they are reliable, certainly when they're living in their upright version of themselves. They are reliable, they're trustworthy, and we can see this in the detail of the work that they complete and produce. In regard to the spiritual intellectual matters, they can actually be quite impatient. So as far as negative tendencies go, there is a risk that the person with the 4 will become so absorbed in what they're doing that they forget or neglect to take care of the other needs, and they may fail to balance their responsibilities as well, and that whole mind, body and spirit aspect. And the results of this can lead to health problems, particularly in regard to stress-induced ailments such as depression and anxiety. The other alternative is if they forget to maintain that balance across all aspects of life, there is a risk that they can become very harshly materialistic, and that can lead to emotional insecurities and chronic unhappiness. To put this into perspective, it would be like the workaholic that's got to do their, 80 hours a week or whatever, and forget to pay attention to the wife and kids, or husband and kids, and it puts a strain on relationships. So balance is very, very important here, and there is a tendency for the 4, the people with the ruling 4, to actually put these kind of relationships on a back burner. Obviously, it's not going to bode well for them if they do. Other times, the unevolved 4 is the best description I can think to use for this. They can be impulsive, particularly a 31-4, I would say, because I know the 31-4s quite well. they can often forget to think before they act. And this is very, very counterproductive for them, because obviously there's always consequences to actions. And if they haven't thought about the consequences, then when they receive them, because they haven't taken that due time to analyse and reflect on whether or not it's a wise action, it will disrupt their whole routine. And I've got to say that they don't necessarily enjoy consequences to any reckless or impulsive actions, not in my observations anyway. But who does? Let's be real. The best advice that we can give to a person with a ruling 4 is basically make sure that they balance all aspects of their life, and that includes mind, body, soul. What's the fourth one? We're talking about mind, body, soul, and spirit. Okay, so soul and spirit are not necessarily the same thing. So you've got your emotional feelings, is your spirit, I guess, and then of course you've got your soul element as well. So we've got 4 elements: earth, air, fire and water. So remember, earth talks about money, air is about the mind, fire is about the passion that drives us, and water is about our emotional substance, if you like. So I guess the fire is linked to the inner flame, the flame of soul. But anyway, so the best advice that we can give for a 4 is that they make sure that they're balanced and that they dedicate enough time across all of these areas to ensure that they retain overall health and well-being. And the other thing is just to continue to work on patience, to make sure that they try and adhere to their own order and routines, because they become so unsettled if their routine is disrupted. That doesn't mean to say that they have to lock themselves into, I've got to have my dinner at 5. It doesn't have to be obsessive, but there needs to be some kind of adherence to the order, because they need it for their own psychological well-being. I just need to cough. The other thing, which is based on my observations, is that where some people can meditate, as in this image, and sit there and just quietly do whatever meditation activity it is that they like, the 4s that I've observed, because they've got such busy minds, they actually struggle to sit still and hold that position. And so based on my experiences, mindfulness activities work far better for them. And I will put up some techniques and strategies, but people can go and Google. If you're a ruling 4, you can go and Google mindfulness activities as a term, and you'll get a whole heap of strategies come up, and that might work very well for you as far as balancing your energy and to still your mind when it's super busy. So as far as work goes for the ruling 4, they have that, obviously the 4 that's on the mind plane, so they bring that intellectual or thinking aspect to whatever they do anyway, but they also have that desire to work with their hands, because they're quite practical. So they can often be found working in the professions of chiropractors. They can, in fact, in my observations, this creative talent that they have, because I do believe most of them do carry this, will take them into art, such as potentially writing. They could be journalists. They also can be good working in the garden or with horticultural type roles, because it allows them to experience the restorative properties of an environment in a way that's both active and relaxing, because they are active people. I also have observed them working in the humanities fields, providing health support to people with frailty, such as the aged or other physical disability. And whatever work they do, though, the intention behind it appears to be a desire to help the other person, meet their earthly obligations or address their needs in practical ways. So yeah, that could be nursing or working as a nurse's aide. And just to be clear, they're actually really good at this, because they do have a very compassionate nature as well. So it's not all about money for them. It's just that money is a big part, or the materialistic element is a big part of who and what they are and what they do. But equally, they have a very, very beautiful, soft, gentle and compassionate side to them as well, especially when living upright and when they've got a bit of maturity about them. So we're going to look now at the traits of the specific sequences, and we're starting with the number 13/4. Now, the tarot card that's associated with this one is actually the Hanging Man, and as far as my AI goes, none of the images that I was able to produce would have been appropriate to put on this video, so I've put this one up. Anyway, the idea of the Hanging Man is a little different, perhaps. I'm not even sure, to be honest, that the Hanging Man is the best tarot card for this particular one, although it is about intuition and perception, sacrifice and courage being the primary life path traits, I guess, for the ruling 13.4. But the Hanging Man does reflect it. Where I'm going with this is the key part of this sequence is about transformation and regeneration. So just going into it, throughout the life path, there are many changes this person can expect that will bring them through to a higher consciousness with each shift. With each ending, there's a new beginning, and with each new beginning, there's an ability to transform and regenerate, which is a bit like a rebirth. So people that are born under this particular sequence, they're blessed with the power of transformation because they are the change makers, and this becomes a power that they can use for the greater good of humanity. If they're living upright, they have the capacity to support and teach other people how to rise above their problems and how to rebuild. So metaphorically speaking, these are the people that can turn a desert into an oasis, right? They just are so gifted in this aspect. But at the same time, this vibration, it carries a bit of a caution. It's one of extremes. It is a very powerful combination once the person has mastered the complexities of it. But these people also love freedom, and they have a tendency to procrastinate, right? And if they fall into this pattern, procrastination goes against the order of things, and it results in the wasting of their personal power and their gifts. And then if they allow fear to consume them, because obviously endings can carry, suffering at different times. I'm really understating it, aren't I? If they become frightened of change or allow fear of change and endings to consume them and paralyze them, then they start to deny themselves opportunities for new growth, and the opportunity for the evolution of themselves becomes lost, as does the opportunity for them to assist other people to evolve and start over, because obviously their path includes helping others to start over again. And that would be a real shame. So let me just have a look at this and think about this a bit more before I get back into it. Just say, the best way I can summarize this is just say, look, they have to be very mindful that they don't allow themselves to fall into a victim mentality, and to just be wise and to guard themselves against procrastination, and to really work on releasing fear of change. That would probably be something they really need to take on board. I've written a heap of notes for this particular sequence because I know it quite well. I've had friends with this sequence, and I also have a daughter with it. And so as with all of them, they carry positive and negative. And as with all life paths, they are the course of the life path. So we're all continually growing and evolving, and this will go the same way for my daughter and also for my adult friends. Everybody's in an ongoing stage of development. So I'm going to try and summarize this and disregard a lot of the notes that I've got up here, that people with this sequence, they can struggle to find peace in their lives, and this is largely because their minds are so busy. We've talked about the busy mind before, and it's going to vary depending on what the person's sun sign is. And the ones that I have known quite well, they are all fours, the 31.4 with an earth sign, so they do have a focus more on the material aspects of life. And these people have exhibited what I think with kindness is, and they would probably agree actually, that they have a desire to control the environment, and they struggle to try not to make other people do what they want to do. So we call that controlling people. It's been a difficult lesson, I think, for all of them, that they can't control the people, and you've got limited control over your environment. And so therefore the self-mastery lies with themselves. Now, the other thing is too that the people with this combination, they have quite a competitive edge to them. And it's this competitiveness that tends to create friction between them and other people, because other people can become quite hostile to them. And so that also ties in with their life path. For them, part of their life path is to learn the art of cooperating with other people, but also with themselves, because they can become their own worst enemies at different times. I think, though, that the really interesting part is that they have definitely, not so much with the younger ones. I'll come back to that whole business about people are developing. So, for instance, my adult daughter, hopefully she's not going to watch this, and if she does, hopefully she's not going to be offended by it. She's still working through the processes of willpower and learning to control it, and I have no doubt that she'll get there at some point in time. Whereas a lady I know specifically, she was a walking example of what the power of the mind meant. And she was one that said, she learned that when she had a problem, there's these things where we all go through life and go, I just don't know what to do when we've reached that point. She said, I just sit there and I focus. She said, I just sit there, I close my eyes and I breathe and I just tell the universe, download the data, download the data, download the data. She said, and then I get up and I know what I've got to do. She said, and then she doesn't. Now, I've got to say, this woman was actually pretty successful within her career, I might add, which was also working with her hands. So other key traits with this, perhaps it's because of the competitive nature, is that they're very independent and they have a little bit of a warrior element to them, and pride can be their downfall if it becomes too excessive. They also can be very, very loyal to their loved ones, and I definitely want to acknowledge that there. When they love somebody, they're as loyal as loyal. They have a little bit of a drama edge to them. They can get a bit dramatic, which is one of the reasons why they need to keep stability in their life, so that they don't go over the top and overthink things. They're very determined, and they are quite capable, as I demonstrated before, of using self-discipline to direct their powerful will into constructive actions. And this is part of ensuring that they are capable of great accomplishments. And they really are. Once they learn self-mastery, they can then take control over their own thinking, and they will be able to identify when their thoughts are based on their egotistical fears and insecurities, or when their thoughts are loving and empowering for themselves and other people. And once they do that, then they can focus that will onto the positive aspects of life and enhancing the quality of life for other people as well as themselves. I just want to make the point here that both of the women that I'm talking about, that I'm aware of as 31-4s, that includes my daughter, because there is this material aspect to them, it would be very easy to assume that they were not particularly enlightened on a spiritual level, but that would be wrong. I just want to point out, to turn around and say that because they have this focus on money, that they can't be spiritual or they can't be good at spirit communication, that would be your own fabrications, because actually my daughter especially, she was very gifted at spirit communication as a young person. She doesn't do it so much now, but she's certainly aware of spirit in her current role. I know that through my conversations with her. But anyway, moving on to the next one. So if you've got a problem or something that needs sorting out, or even a good architect, try looking for somebody with the qualifications who also has a ruling number of the 40/4. This is because they're very, very well organised, they're careful planners, they deliver projects in a systematic way, and they will be so thorough, they will explore every angle and carefully weigh up each of the options and the pros and cons that are associated with each one before they actually implement and take action. And these people tend to engender trust from others because they are just perfectionists and inspirational. Now, when it comes to money, these people are also shrewd. They're quite cautious. They carry the belief of if you look after money, it will look after you. They are actually extremely predictable most of the time, and that methodical that I'm talking about, that makes them capable of any task that they set their mind to. So they really are able to set solid and stable foundations for their present and for the future. And besides these aspects, they are actually generally naturally sympathetic. They're very compassionate and they're very loving towards to other people. They've got an inherent empathy within them. They are absolutely not devoid of spiritual consciousness by any means. They know who they are and they know where they're going. They know what they're up to. And here we have the people who are natural born diplomats. They are practical, they're talented, they have excellent communication skills, and all of these attributes open doors of opportunity for them. So once again, these people tend to find themselves in management roles, or if they don't, they have capacity to. They're very optimistic, they're also very efficient, and they're quite precise. They're able to focus and concentrate for extended periods of time is the best way to describe it. They also often have the artistic abilities because of their creative talents, and they're very perceptive with an active imagination, and that inspires them to try and translate some of the imagery of their mind into a physical form. So perhaps sculpting might be one thing. What else? The sequence is also associated with emotional balance. Now, I need to be clear about this. It's associated with linking the emotions with the mind, which, if we talk about the power of emotions as standalone, emotions that are, if we use the power of emotions and we haven't focused it and directed it in any way, it can just spray out everywhere. It could be a waste of emotion. I'm not sure if I'm articulating effectively. But if we combined that passion of emotion with logical, rational thought and reason toward a productive, positive goal for humanity, then we're going to create something of substance. And this is what this sequence can do. It links that mind with the passion to create. So I hope I described that well. There is, what else? A hospitality. They're kind to everybody. They've got a generous nature, and it's because of these attributes that they tend to live lives that where they're quite contented. They have a security about them. They tend to be successful. What else? Despite their apparent success, what is really interesting for these people is that they have because they've got these astute minds, and because they can visualize, I guess, and empathize as well, these are the people that kind of understand the barriers other people live, even if they haven't experienced it themselves. I think the best way I would be able to describe that would be some of the lecturers that I had at university, who you knew when they were talking to you that they actually had no experience of your personal lived experiences of suffering, but equally they were able to empathise enough and deliver a compassionate response. So I guess this is what I'm talking about with these type of characters. They are interested in justice. They're very fair. And they've got high integrity. If they end up as a manager, they're still fair within the delegation of responsibilities and tasks, and honesty is right up there for them. The advice to these people would be, basically, if they were living negatively, not to overindulge, basically, because it can lend itself, because it's such a fortuitous and blessed number combination, it would be easy for them to sink into self-indulgence. So there's a caution against that. So those fours born with this sequence, they tend to be very charming, logical and honest, and they're well liked. They're very likable, They, as with all the fours, they tend to be very fair in all their dealings and business. They can be meticulous. They like to look before they leap. This is when they're living upright. Obviously, we've spoken about the ones that are risk takers, and that's a bit self-defeating. But anyway, generally speaking, they like to look before they leap. And they like to process information before making a decision. They're ones that you'd be having a conversation with and you'd say, well, what do you think? And they go, I need to think about that before I let you know my answer, because they want to make sure that their response is informed, I guess, and sensitive and helpful. They seem to be very adaptable and able to bounce back from all setbacks with relative ease, probably because they're such positive people. However, one of the inherent traits is their need for organisation within the home environment, because visual clutter will interrupt their sense of comfort, and they like things to be clean and orderly. I think it would be worth doing an exploration, and in fact, if you know people with this sequence, or if you are one yourself, just let me know. Are there any links between OCD and this numerology that you might have observed? Because there is that real need, from what I can gather, for that environment, as I say, to be uncluttered, clean, and basically perfect. Anyway, all right, so the other thing is that there is a belief in justice and fairness, once again, and this is, I think, the most, well, of course, there's always singular traits, but this one I find interesting. They're repelled by coarse behaviour because they have high ideals and expectations around personal conduct. I'd be particularly interested to hear people's feedback about that, and if I'm correct. They do tend to be a bit romantic. Harmony is paramount to them. They love all of their personal relationships, and in fact, there's a need there for them to be balanced. And I've said, I think before, they have an innate understanding of other people's feelings, and this is really comforting to those people around them. And it's going to be emphasised if the person with the ruling 58.4, if they're a water sign or an air sign, they will have a far more gentle aspect to them than, say, the earth or the fire signs. I think that's probably it for this one. Let me know your thoughts. So we're getting through it, cracking along from me or for me. Give myself a whip and a boot. Right. So the 6713/4, ruling number 4, these people are the ethical, trustworthy and law-abiding citizens. They know that the way to success is through hard work, being organised and having a clear direction. And they also understand that sustained effort is the only pathway to material, spiritual and emotional growth. So they're very disciplined, okay? They are shrewd with money, they budget wisely, and this pays off for them with an ordered life of contentment and harmony. Now, they might shirk, just to be clear, they might shirk their responsibilities in the younger years, but as they mature, they're going to know and realise that freedom comes from understanding and accepting the laws of discipline about order and structure. They have very high personal standards and ideals. Once again, they like to live with integrity, and if their integrity was questioned, they would most likely particularly resent having it scrutinised, because it'd be like, well, how can you think that I lack integrity? They would potentially take it quite personally, as many of us would. However, at the same time, they're very realistic and they're practical, and when they combine this with their creative and inventive side, it may manifest for them in artistic or spiritual pursuits. But whatever they set their mind to and their hands to, they will create in very original and unique ways. They're goodness me, I can't think of the word to describe it. They are just unique thinkers, I guess. Maybe, actually, I should do Elon Musk. I don't think that his numerology is a 4, actually. I think I have done it. But he's an innovator. That's the word I'm looking for. They tend to be innovative. Their purpose in life really is to be able to help those around them to live with a greater physically rewarding life. And that includes, I guess, manifestation of their material needs, if you like. That's one of the ways that these people will help them. Of course, when we're looking at all of these numbers, we are seeing similar traits, and this is because, remember, they do all carry the ruling 4. They just have, it's that different pathways to China. Similar, but not the same, okay? So for these people, the 7613s, they have tendencies to be very eloquent. They're also modest. They don't talk themselves up. Organisation, key thing again, and that meticulous attention to detail. Now, obviously money is reflected here, and working towards this manifestation of wealth. They tend to, because they've got the gift of the gab, you might as well say, and that humility, the humility is important. They know they're good. They don't need to tell everybody that they're good. So when they combine these attributes with their willpower, they generally will find themselves at the top of their fields in work situations, and sometimes apparently even as geniuses. I haven't found this in the numerology myself, but they have this really innovative way of thinking as well, but which is quite superior. They can be serious and very shrewd. So that's an interesting thing. That logical aspect to them is really quite high. I'd love to hear from people that know somebody closely with the 7613, because I actually haven't met anybody. This is just an understanding of numbers and what I've seen by doing my own research. So I can't lay claim to specifics here. What I do understand, or what I've read and researched, is that this particular demographic, they are apparently quite good at denying their own needs on their way to achieving a goal. So once they've set a goal, they can actually self-sacrifice. And by that I mean, this is that risk that we talked about with some of the other fours as well, where they will ignore the aspects of family or relationships or even spiritual nourishment. They might be working all the time, but they will generally, I think because they've got such a logical, rational mind to them, they will only do it if there is a solid and practical goal to work for, and then they could probably work 16 hours a day without a problem. And I'm pushing along trying to keep this under 45 minutes. Okay, famous fours. David Grohl gets a special mention this week because, of course, I'm doing Ruling Fours and they played here in Perth this week. I didn't attend, okay? I'm in a bit of a bubble these days, so I didn't know that they were going to do a concert, but from where I sit, I can hear the concerts. Not necessarily like I'm right there, but certainly the drumming of that concert, I was sitting out the front and all of a sudden the drumming started and I started bouncing on my chair, and then I went and did a Google. I was like, oh my God, the Foo Fighters are in town and I didn't even know. Anyway, so he is a 31-4. Seal, so we're looking a bit at entertainers this week. Seal's number is also a 31-4. His numerology, I actually had a look at these guys' charts, to be honest, but I'm not going to talk to them. But Seal's numerology reveals he's a very deep thinker and he would have an extremely busy mind, probably more so than some of these other fours. I would say that he is very, very astute, as he carries an arrow of intellect on his birth chart along with the arrow of the planner. So I have no doubt when I look at his chart that his success has largely been not necessarily because of his talent, and I don't mean to diminish his talent because I'm not going to. The point I'm making is there are plenty of talented people out there that don't become famous, but he is talented and he's become famous, and I would say it's all down to him because he is clever and he has planned out every single one of his career moves very carefully, I would say, and he has been prepared to do the hard yards to reach his goal. So interestingly, based on some of the numerology that we've looked at before he started his musical career, he actually did a 2-year diploma of architecture. There you go, that was a new thing. As far as working with your hands goes, hello Dave Grohl, he definitely does. I will actually talk on this. I did do his birth chart and he's got what's called a arrow of hypersensitivity on his chart, which seems, you just can't judge people based on face value, because he reeks this persona of confidence. Obviously he's been working the stage for many years. However, what I would gain from looking at his chart is that he's actually quite sensitive to negative criticism, because it would cut him very deeply. Where many people just shrug it off, for Dave, I bet he takes it deep. And he would know also, because of this hypersensitivity, he would be able to pick up when people weren't being completely honest with him, and that might even feed a little bit of paranoia. But what I was going to say is, what I find interesting about that is, I would imagine that hypersensitivity is part of his motivating drive to be the top of his field. Just a thought, just putting it out there. I'm not saying it with any great I know, because I'm not doing a reading of him. He also, on his birth chart, he had the arrow of the inquirer. So even if he did pick up that somebody was being dishonest, I don't think he would be sitting around fretting about it. I think he would be asking the questions, and he would be determined to find the answers. He would want to know why this is happening. Now, Matthew McConaughey, in regard to him, yeah, he's a 31-4. He's done acting for most of his life. I didn't see anything in there that would indicate, when I say that I Googled and did a bit of research very superficially, I didn't see anything there that reflects that he's done work with his hands, but it doesn't all have to be with hands, does it? It can be just earthly, practical stuff. Apparently, in his younger days, he came to Australia as a Rotary Exchange student, and he worked with an attorney, I believe, did a work experience or something like that, and with accountancy. So those are two very earthly, practical aspects. But either way, he didn't do either of them for very long, because he returned home and then he started his acting career. Now, what I would say is that it's shown in the charts that these men actually would all be, with the exception of Seal, so Dave and Matthew, this perception that we might have that they're all chatty and chatterboxes, that's actually reflected in their birth charts. So how interesting is that? So interestingly, the Dalai Lama is also a 31-4. Now, I think I kind of deleted as I passed through the 31-4. I didn't want to speak of anything negative. Well, I'm actually going to mention it here, and it doesn't just relate to the two women that I know. What I have observed is people with a 31-4, they can actually be quite reactive and even volatile. And in some instances, that business of act now, repent later, they may lash out with a fist if they haven't learned the skills at this point in time of verbal communication. So in regard to the Dalai Lama, I find that quite interesting. Clearly, he's obviously a master. But anyway, my notes were, I wouldn't have thought that the potential for violence would be there in his charts, right? But then if I stop and think about it again, realistically, the Japanese, Chinese, Tibetan warriors, the Shinto high priests, and all of these people, they were very skilled and adept at martial arts as warfare, and they used these skills mindfully, right? Do your own research on that. So I'm not saying that this is related to the Dalai Lama, it's just a thought bubble that I'm sharing with you. Realistically, Tibet has been warring with China now for decades, trying to maintain independence since World War II, I believe. I could have that wrong. But anyway, going back to, I'm more interested in his birth chart, which actually is quite fascinating if you take a look at this. You can see that although he's a 31-4, his birth chart is weighted on the mind plane. He's got a 3 and a 6 and a 9. And so altogether, you would add that up. That's a 3 and 6 is a 9. 9 and 9 is 18. 8 plus 1 is 9. So he's weighted that way. And then he's got the doing plane, and then he's got nothing on the spiritual plane. Doesn't that sound interesting? Feelings. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have feelings. He does have feelings. Okay, I'm just making the point of this, right? Because each of those arrows have a meaning themselves. So I'm going to go into it. On the mind plane, he's got the arrow of intellect. On the body plane, he's got the arrow of practicality. So what we have here is wisdom that is used for the greater good on the earth plane. This is represented by these arrows. The number 9 is associated with prophecy, and the 3 that I see here refers to the Trinity, mind, body, and spirit. He also carries the arrow of hypersensitivity, which means he's going to be very sensitive to the feelings of other people, right? So I think he's got an amazing birth chart, actually. So just sharing that with you. Let me know what you think. I'm interested in your thoughts. Well, my friends, I said that I was aiming for less than 45 minutes, and if I speak really quick, I can wrap this up and say thank you very much from me. That's it for this week, folks. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your experiences. If you've got questions, put them up. I'll try and respond to them. But that's it for me for now. Until next time, take care, be blessed, and thank you for being part of my journey. Take care. Bye-bye.